Cool. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how I made this backlit LED sign that is controllable through my phone. The first thing that I did was make a stencil. I went to a local Kinko's and had my design printed off to the size I needed it. Mine says the W, but of course yours could say anything. And I taped it down to my dining table. Then I also went through and taped the front side of all of the lettering, and this is just to give it some rigidity while I'm cutting it out and using it as a stencil. Once that was done, I used an X-Acto knife to start the cutting process. I did make sure to place a board underneath the stencil so I wouldn't be cutting up my table. And I also made sure not to lose the inside pieces because they will be needed. For this project, you could use a piece of glass that you could etch, but I personally used plexiglass. I bought a piece a little bit larger than what I needed and cut it to the exact size I wanted it, making sure to use painter's tape so that it comes away with a nice clean edge. Then I laid the stencil on top of the plexiglass and taped it into place. Then used a Sharpie to trace the design. However, whenever I started the actual etching process, you'll see here it was just way too difficult to get rid of all of the black Sharpie marks, and it was taking way too much time. So I decided to change tactics and instead place the stencil underneath the plexiglass and use fingernail polish remover to remove the Sharpie marks. And this worked a lot better. I would first go through and outline all of the letters with a smaller, finer tip, this one here, and then come back with a thicker piece in order to fill in the inside. Now I'm not going for a lot of depth here, I'm just going for a nice etched looking surface. And the process really does go really quickly. You just need to make sure not to move the plexiglass and to be looking at it from straight on if you can. Once I was satisfied with the etching, I used some sandpaper to kind of smooth it to the touch. I set that aside and started making the back, using 1/4-inch plywood for the backer material, and then I found 3 8-foot joints of tongue and groove 1/4-inch paneling. I cut them to the exact size needed at the miter saw, but I was actually one piece short. I had extra material, but they were too short. So to kind of work around this, I took all of the material to the miter saw and just cut them up into random different lengths. I try not to think about it too much because I really wanted it to be a random pattern. So I would just set them on the saw and randomly chop. Then I took the pile of pieces to the backer board and started dry fitting a pattern, trying to stagger the joints and just get a pattern that looked really random. Once I was satisfied with the look, I moved all of the pieces aside, making sure to maintain their position, and then glued them into place. I added a little bit of weight and then let it sit to dry. While it was setting up, I looked around to see what I had on hand to start making a frame. I first cut them to size at the miter saw, and then changed out my table saw blade for my dado stack so I could start cutting in some dados. I cut in a dado along the front that will hold the LED strips as well as the plexiglass, and then I cut in a rabbet along the back, which will hold the back, which I just left to dry. Once all the slots were cut, I turned my blade to 45 degrees and made a miter on all the ends. And to add reinforcement to these mitered joints, I am going to be using a biscuit, so I just used my biscuit joiner to quickly go through and add a slot to each mitered cut. So for the glue up, I'm actually only gluing the 2 sides to the bottom right now. So this top piece here is just a dry fit. And this is so the top will be free later on for me to slide in the plexiglass. I used a ratchet strap in my right angle fences to let this dry. And by this time, the back was ready to be cut to size. I clamped it down and used my track saw to get a nice clean cut on the 2 edges that had the overhang. And I think that's going to be it for making the back. After letting the frame dry a little bit longer, I test fitted the plexiglass just to make sure I wasn't going to have any problems. After seeing that it was a nice fit, I took the plexiglass out and gave the frame a coat of stain. Then I glued and nailed in the back. Next I went through and started dry fitting the lights. Now I'm using some Osram Lightify Flex lights, and these are LED strips that can change colors. They come with adhesive on the back to where all you have to do is peel and stick. So once I verified that the placement of them was going to be correct, I started peeling off the backing and sticking them permanently into place. And I'll show you in just a few minutes how they work. With the lights in place, I had my husband come and hold the top into place for me so that I could slide the plexiglass sign into place. With that in its spot, I was now able to glue and clamp the top into place. After letting that sit for about 2 hours, I plugged the lights in, which I probably should have tested before I actually installed them, but I didn't even think about it. Doesn't that look cool? On the back of the frame, I actually left enough room so that I could place this little controller and it still be flush. And to hang the actual sign, I'm going to be using a French cleat. So I located the studs and put a cleat on the wall, put a cleat on the back of the frame, and then just simply hung it into place. Alright, now it's time for the really cool part, plugging it in and playing with the lights. What I really like about these lights is that you're able to just have a huge variety of color choices for them. You can go from blue to pink to red to green. The lights come with this little device called a gateway, and it plugs into any standard light socket. It connects to your device through your Wi-Fi connection and allows you to control the devices directly from your phone. I mean, look at this color wheel. It's not just a standard set of colors. You can go anywhere on the color wheel, and as you drag your finger around, the lights will adjust accordingly. Or if you want, you can just simply turn the device off and on. Okay, and that's it. Now with these LED strips, you can get so creative with the possibilities on projects. You can make a decorative, creative nightlight for your child's room, a backlit art piece, or even a sign for a man cave. Now, of course, I have left you a link in the description of the video on where you can find the LED strips, as well as everything else I used in the video. So I hope that this project inspired you to make something of your own, and I will see you next time.
What do you think about painting the room before you hang that up?
Me? Why don't you paint the room?
Because you're the artiste, and I'm not.
How about this? We play a game of pool. Loser paints the room.
I don't know. I mean, I know you've been practicing, but I'm not real sure if you want to do that.
Rack 'em up, dude.
Okie dokie. Hey. I brought you something.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. See? Losing's not so bad now, is it?
Yeah, not so bad.
Here. Let's just get back to painting. Love you.
You're lucky I'm not painting this thing purple.
I know, babe.